okay, to stretch them. Make them a little thinner and flatten them and nice and even. So this part takes the longest, you know, to get a nice slab of clay that is nice and even, right? You want to roll in many different directions, okay? Do this side. If you have access to a rolling pin, feel free to use it. It will definitely give you an advantage. But if you don't, use the brayer. Okay. At the ceramic studio, we have what's called a slab roller. It's a machine that you put a big piece of clay in, and you feed it through this double roller, and your piece comes out to whatever thickness you put on it. Okay, so fortunately, we're not there, but we'll have to use some muscle and roll them out by ourselves. All right, so the next step, similar to how we created our two-sided vessel, I'm going to use a piece of paper. That's going to be like a rectangle or a square form. All right, so let me grab a piece of paper. Okay, so this piece of paper is going to be my template for each shape, because you want both sides to be the same shape, the same size, same width. Okay, so I'm going to fold this directly in half. All right, and it could be this big if you want. You know, if your two slabs are a little small, this doesn't fit in, just take your piece of paper, fold it back a little more. Okay, so once you have a template that accommodates both, you know, then you can cut out each of them. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to hold this in place. I'm going to just carefully use this fettling knife. I'm going to trim the clay, and I'm going to keep my scraps again. I'm going to put them on the side. Okay, if you leave these out, they may dry, so sometimes you put them in a bag. If they're sitting out too long, you won't be able to use them if you want. And you'll see for the dream pillow, they may come in useful. Okay, so now I'm going to cut this one. And remove these scraps. Okay. All right, so now I have two slabs, right, about the same size. This project is similar to a double-sided vessel, right? Since we started with two slabs, except we stood the double-sided vessel up. This, we're going to kind of make a large ravioli, right, or a large empanada, or something that looks like, you know, almost like a piece of food, right? So remember when we trim the top corners, right? We trim them so that the edges match up a little better. So on this piece, all the edges are actually going to be attached to each other. So we're going to trim all four corners. Okay, so it's important to watch how I trim, right? So I'm just trimming this top edge off, and the tip of the pin tool is on the canvas almost. Okay? All right, so you don't want to trim it straight. It should be held at about a 45-degree angle. Okay, if you trim away too much, right? It could, you could have some spacing when you're joining the pieces. So just try to trim a little, just the top corner off. So you have this little scrap piece and not too much. This just creates a less material where the edge is going to be. So the edge will become a little thinner. It won't be so fat, okay? Sometimes when you have too much material at the edge, you wind up with a lot of excess you'll have to cut away, or you could add it to your design if you want, if you have a thicker edge. All right, so the next step, we're going to score all the edges. Okay, everyone with me? Thumbs up. Okay. All right, so I'm going to score these edges here, right? Notice my score marks are nice and deep. Score these. So when I score, I'm basically making a lot of X's. I go through one direction and then go through the other way. And do that on all 8 sides. Another useful tool when we're doing a lot of scoring is my favorite tool, the fork, right? So if you decide, oh, I'm too lazy to do all that, you know, grab a fork. It comes in very handy. I always have one in my toolbox, and there's many of them around the studio to use. All right, so I'm going to take my slip, right? So I've accumulated a lot of scrap clay, and I added water to this yesterday. It's a little watery. It should be a little thicker. But if you find your slip got a little watery, you could pour out a little water, or you could add a little more clay to it, okay? What I'm gonna do, slip is liquid clay, okay? It's just a liquidy clay. All right, so I'm gonna dab the slip on, because I don't want to brush it. If I brush it, the score marks may disappear. So I'm just going to dab it on top. Okay. All right. So this next step, sometimes I actually will like curve the piece a little bit and curve this piece a little bit, like make a boat. That's what I call this, like make it a little boat. So we want to basically put a filling inside our pillow. So with that piece of paper I had, let me see, I might need, probably use the whole sheet.
Rudy just texted saying he's trying to join.
Excuse me?
Rudy
Oh, okay. Thank you. Rudy.
Hello?
You're late. It's all right. So we'll look at your two-sided vessel, but let's just take a look at what we're doing here. Okay, it's similar to our two-sided vessel, except we're making a pillow form. Okay, so I rolled out 2 slabs. I scored all the edges. All right, so you just logged in time to see this step. Okay, this is an important step. All right, so I scored the area of 1, and I'm making, basically having fun. I'm making the content of the filling. So the reason I ripped it up is because it wasn't, it was too centered, so I want to spread it out a little bit, okay? So one sheet is probably enough. Okay, so you want it kind of to be fluffy. You don't squish it too much. All right, so I'm going to take my next piece and drape it over. Try to keep that paper in place. Okay, so this is a step. A lot of people just kind of push down on this, and then the bottom piece remains flat. So what we want to do actually is take the bottom and meet the top piece kind of in the center. Right, so you take a look here, I'm going to pinch this one up, and when you combine it, the edge should be in the air. Okay, so I'm combining this, gently squeezing it, and then I'll go back and clean the edge. So I'll rotate this so you guys can see this side. Okay, again, same thing. Okay, now I have the front. All right, so it's like a pouch right now, right? I'm going to seal it. Okay, so all the edges are elevated, right? So they don't sit directly on the floor. So if you notice, if you have a fluffed pillow and you lay it flat, a lot of times this is what it'll look like. The edges will be elevated, okay? So this gives it the appearance, by creating this raised edge, of it actually being lighter, okay? Like it's almost floating. All right, so I'm gonna continue to clean up these edges. Okay, so you could decide, which side you like better. If you flip it over, you might like the other side. I think the bottom half is probably gonna be flatter. So that's gonna be my base, okay? And if you decide, right, your piece, now you have this as a template. You can stand it up and kind of hit it to flatten it and transform it into something. You can leave it flat and create something. So for this piece, I'll probably just leave this one flat, and I may build something up onto it, or I may use it as like creating a relief so I could hang it on the wall. All right, that's up to you. Okay, so if everyone, let's see, wants to begin working on this, we'll get to this stage, and then I'll show you what the next step would be. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, Rudy, we all shared our two-sided vessels. How's yours coming?